Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend some time with Deaf Republic, a poetry collection by Ilya Kaminsky. This collection was originally published in 2019. I decided to read this because, well, back in April was Poetry Month here in the U.S., and so for that month, I purchased 4 poetry collections to read on then through the rest of the year. I've previously chatted one of those collections called Under Capitalism, If Your Head Aches, They Just Yank Off Your Head, by Ariel Francisco. I will link to that chat down in the details below. But this collection, Deaf Republic, had come to me recommended from a viewer, and when I read up on it, it sounded like a really great collection to take a look at. It did pick up was a National Book Award finalist for the year that it came out, which I guess was 2019. So I wanted to give this a go, and it was really an interesting experience. This is a collection of poetry, but it tells a story. It tells a narrative. It's got a story, kind of a story arc to it. And so I think what I will do to just sort of describe the collection is to read the back description of it, because to me this is the most concise way to describe what the overall story arc is like. But it is individual poems. Then the story is told through these individual poems, but. The description says, Deaf Republic opens in a time of political unrest in an unoccupied territory. Yeah, we don't really know. It's not specified where this is or even what era it is. If it's current, if it's future, if it's past. We're not really sure. Though the setting is uncertain, we recognize ourselves, our time and our country in these harrowing events. Definitely that was my experience as well. This astonishing parable in poems unfolds episodically, its narrative provoked by a tragic opening scene. While breaking up a protest, a soldier shoots and kills a young deaf boy, and the gunshot renders the entire town deaf. In the prevailing silence and against the soldiers' brutal crackdown, the citizens coordinate their dissent with sign language illustrated across the book. So you will see these signs periodically that will pertain to the particular poem. This one is Kiss. So the villagers, then, the people of the town, communicate in this way. The story then diverges to follow the private lives of townspeople encircled by public violence. A newly married couple, Alfonso and Sonia, expecting a child, the daring Mama Galia instigating the insurgency from her puppet theater, we'll talk more about that here in a bit, and Galia's puppeteers covertly teaching signs by day and by night, covertly teaching signs by day, and by night luring soldiers one by one to their deaths behind the curtain. At once a love story, an elegy, and an urgent plea, Deaf Republic stands as a warning and a powerful questioning of our own collective silence in the face of our time's atrocities. The deaf do not believe in silence, Ilya Kaminsky writes. Silence is the invention of the hearing. So that's sort of an overview of the story arc that's taking place in these individual poems. The individual poems themselves, though, can be quite powerful as far as this experience of this town. As this description describes, it opens, well, actually the book itself, the collection itself, opens with a poem called We Lived Happily During the War. We Lived Happily During the War. And that is the first poem of the book, and it is really experienced here in it actually mentions America, so the U.S., where this is going on, but the general population is sort of oblivious to it. Although this poem is also sort of ambivalent, that it could also be happening here, and we're just not aware of it, as far as this sort of violence occurring to the people of this community. I thought I would next just sort of there's this list here of the dramatis personae here the list of the characters that appear in the poems that really tell this story, and I thought this would also sort of help to illustrate these poems. And so the first listed is the townspeople themselves. The townspeople of Vasinka is the chorus, the we, who tell the story, and on balconies, the chorus, we, who tell the story, and on balconies, the wind fondles laundry lines. That's actually in one of the poems, the laundry blowing there. And then next is Alfonso Barabinsky. He's a puppeteer, Sonia's newlywed husband, and the I of Act 1. So Act 1 is told through his perspective. And Act 1, the title of Act 1 is The Townspeople Tell the Story of Sonia and Alfonso. And then Sonia Barabinsky, Vasinka's, which is the town's, best puppeteer, Alfonso's newlywed wife and pregnant. And then child, inside Sonia, is a seahorse-sized sleeping, and later she's known as Anushka. And then Petya is the deaf boy, Sonia's cousin, which the collection opens then as he is shot by some soldiers in the street. He doesn't hear their warnings, and then he spits at them, and he ends up getting killed in a very moving sort of poem, which I won't read, but yeah. And then the next character listed here is Mama Galya Armolinskaya. She's the puppet theater owner. She instigates an insurgency, and she is the I of Act 2. So Act 2 is told from her perspective. The title of Act 2 is called The Townspeople Tell the Story of Mama Galya. Okay, so through her puppet theater, this is where the town learns the signs. They communicate with each other in this. It's not silent, right? It's actually speaking. It's speaking non-verbally, but it's nevertheless not really silence in the sense of silence. All right, and then she said the next set of characters are called Galya's puppeteers. They teach signs from the theater balcony as if regulating traffic. For soldier, it's a finger-like beak points to the eye, soldier. And then for snitch, fingers peck at both eyes. And then for army jeep, it's a clenched fist moves forward. And then the next characters listed are soldiers. They arrive in Vasinka to protect our freedom, speaking a language no one understands. And then the final characters listed here are the puppets themselves. They hang on doors and porches of families of the arrested, except for one puppet lying on the cement, a middle-aged woman wearing a child like a broken arm, her mouth filling with snow. So that's the cast of characters that are told through these poems. I'm not sure exactly how many poems there are. There's a total of 76 pages, and it looks like the poems themselves start on page 11, so 60 something, and then there's the one that opens it, which is We Lived Happily During the War. So not a lot of poems, but tells a really impactful story in a very poetic and impactful, powerful way. Okay, so there's just a couple of quotes I was going to kind of call out that I really loved. I want to, this is a copyrighted poetry collection. I definitely, or if you're into poetry, and this sort of topic appeals to you, I urge you to buy the collection and read the entire poems. But there's just a couple of lines here that I'll call out that I thought were so cool. This is from a poem called "A City Like a Guillotine Shivers on Its Way to the Neck." And it's the line is, "At the trial of God we will ask, why did you allow all this? And the answer will be an echo. Why did you allow all this?" I thought that was so cool. And then the other quote I just call out is from a poem called "In the Bright Sleeve of the Sky." And the line says, "Sometimes at night I light a lamp so as not to see." You know, isn't that cool? That poetic imagery there of lighting a lamp at night, turning on a light at night, because in the darkness is where you see what you don't want to see, so you turn on a light. Yeah, I just thought that was so cool. All right. This was a wonderful collection to spend some time with. There's a lot to ponder on in here. I've read through it actually twice. I could easily, and partially again when I was getting ready for this chat. There's just some really powerful moments here in these poems that are well worth spending a little bit of time with if you're so inclined, which I encourage you to. If you're not much of a poetry reader, you know, just reach out to a few collections and until you find one that really resonates with you. This one did with me, and I enjoyed it a lot. I will be getting through the next two that I bought, the collections that I bought back in April, so I'll have a couple more poetry collections coming up this year, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, my next chat is actually going to be, let me just call it up here. It is actually going to be A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe. I have already finished this novel, and I will have a chat on it coming up fairly soon. So until next time, take care. Bye.